Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to the worship service of the First Unitarian Church of Hobart. My name is Barb Langle, and I participate in the life of the church by serving on the Board of Trustees, among other things. We are a religious community of people with diverse beliefs and shared values. Our diverse beliefs are expressed in our 6 sources, and our shared values are expressed in our 7 principles. Both can be found online at uua.org. Together, we strive to grow spiritually, build community, and live our values in the world. I have a few announcements. This one's from your president, your board president, Sandy. This morning, during first hour, there was an opportunity for voting members to ask questions of our finance ministry and the ad hoc bylaws committee on the subject of the budget for the upcoming year. And the second next Sunday during first hour from 10 to 10:45, there will be a second question and answer session for the budget for the coming year. And these matters will be voted on at the annual meeting on June 2nd. If you missed this session this morning, you're encouraged to come to the next one. All voting members should have received an email with a PDF of the proposed bylaws for your review. If you are in need of a hard copy, please let Sandy know. The more information you have before the meeting and the more questions that are answered, the better the meeting will go, and we won't be here all day long. Our next announcements are from Michelle. Our annual congregational meeting will be held June 2nd after a brief coffee hour. We ask that all voting members plan on attending. And on June 1st is the Pride Fest. We will have a booth there if anybody's interested in helping or just coming. But if anybody's interested in helping get ready for the booth or attending the booth, we will have a booth there on the 1st. I don't have the times right now, and Patricia's not here, right? But, okay. Okay, yeah, but there's just sign-up sheet that you could sign up. Trivia night church fundraiser will be May 11th. Teams should consist of 4 to 6 people, which is $100 per team. Invite your smartest friends and relatives to join you on a team. Sign-up sheets are in the parish hall. This is for fun and fundraising. You don't have to be good at trivia to attend. Anyone who would like to help the Farrells plan trivia night, let Michelle or Tracy know. The 4th of July Planning Committee has decided to give out free snow cones to the community during the 4th of July parade here in Hobart to celebrate our 150th anniversary. We also are looking into having a golf cart in the parade, along with some walkers to hand out candy and hold a banner. If you would like to volunteer to help hand out snow cones here in front of the church, or walk in the parade, or if you know anyone who might let us borrow their golf cart, let Jess, Michelle, somebody looked like they knew somebody, Tracy, or Joey know. Everybody knows we had our, well, not everybody, but most people know we had our rummage sale this past weekend. We made about $1,200 to $1,300. Not as much as we usually do, but hey, it was good. I want to thank everybody that helped, everybody that donated, and everybody that came in and spent their money. Thank you all. When Pastor Tom is not in the pulpit, and right now he's in, this is his last week. He should be back next week, right? He's in sabbatical. He'll be back next week in the pulpit. We have a guest or a member of our congregation speak. Today we have Sandy Waters in the pulpit. She will be talking about Explorers Club. We are currently streaming our services online. The Joys and Sorrows portion, however, is private, and we will take a break at that time. Other than that, the service will be recorded and will be available for future viewing on Facebook, YouTube, and the church website. Now please let your Facebook and Twitter friends know you are attending worship with hashtag First Unitarian Hobart. Silence your devices. Take a deep breath. And another. Relax and join us in the spirit of reverence.
Gathering in Our Own Spaces by Jeff May. Come, gather, not into a common space, sharing a physical closeness we long for, precluded by wise choice. But come, gather into this common time and common space. We need to be together. We yearn for connection. We hunger for the familiar faces of friends, the sound of shared voices proclaiming who we are, where we are going. That which resonates with our hopes, dreams, and values. Come, gather. We are here in this space made of all spaces, and we share our becoming in this moment.
And now please rise for our opening hymn, number 188 in the Gray
Please remain standing for the affirmation of faith and the doxology. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament. Service is its prayer. And this is our covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Now is the time for recovenanting. I will read 3 lines from our covenants and ask you to repeat at the end the same. And to worship is to pay utmost attention to what is worth paying attention to. So in that spirit, may we learn to be productive in discomfort, and that makes possible all learning and growth and community. For all the ways that we have neglected to expand our spiritual growth and faith in action, may we forgive ourselves and each other and begin again in love. For all the ways that we have not actively worked to build trust and respect in our community, may we forgive ourselves and each other and begin again in love. For all the ways that we have not committed our hearts and minds to building a community of caring, acceptance, and reconciliation, may we forgive ourselves and each other and begin again in love. And now you can greet your neighbor, wave your hands, big smile. We realize that not everybody can attend in person. For those in the sanctuary, hello, big smiles. And we welcome all virtually and thank our tech team for making that possible. Amen. Yes. This congregation expresses our deepest sorrows and greatest joys in community. We believe that a sorrow shared is diminished and a joy shared is magnified. We pause, listen to what arises in our hearts. If anyone would like to share today, please raise your hand. I'll come to you, stand, say your name, and share. Anybody?
This is one of my favorite writers, William Steig. He writes outrageously wonderful books for kids. Two small figures, made of wood, were lying out in the sun one day on an old newspaper. One was short, fat, and painted pink. The other was straight, thin, and painted yellow. It was hot and quiet, and they were both wondering. After a while, the yellow one sat up and focused his gimlet eyes on the pink one. "Do I know you?" he asked. "I don't think so," Pink answered. "Do you happen to know what we're doing here?" asked Yellow. "No," said Pink. "I don't even remember getting here." "Me neither," said Yellow, looking all around. There were chickens busy pecking a little way off, and further back in the field, some dreamy cows. "I can't help wondering," he went on, "how we got to be here. It all seems new and strange. Who are we?" Pink looked Yellow over. He found Yellow's color, his well-chiseled head, his whole form admirable. "Someone must have made us," he said. "How could anyone make someone like me, so intricate, so perfect?" Yellow asked. "Or for that matter, like you. And wouldn't we know who made us, since we had to be there when we got made?" "And why," Yellow asked, "would he leave us like this with no explanation? I say we're an accident. Somehow or other, we just happened." Pink couldn't believe what he heard. He started laughing. "You mean these arms I can move this way and that, this head I can turn in any direction, this breathing nose, these walking feet, all of this happened by some kind of fluke? That's preposterous." "Don't laugh," said Yellow. "Just stop and reflect. With enough time, 1,000, 1,000,000, maybe 2.5 million years, lots of unusual things could happen. Why not us?" "Because it's impossible. It's absolutely out of the question. How could we just happen? Would you mind explaining?" Yellow got up and began pacing. He kicked a pebble aside. "Well, it could be something like this. I'm not saying exactly. Suppose a branch broke off a tree and fell on a sharp rock in just the right way so that one end split open and made legs. So there you have legs. Then winter came and this piece of wood froze and the ice split the mouth open. There's your mouth. Then maybe one day a big hurricane came and took that piece of wood and sent it tumbling down a rocky hill with little bushes. And it got bumped and chipped and brushed and shaped this way and that. Sand blowing in the wind might have helped with the smoothing. That piece of wood, that piece of wood could have hung around at the bottom of that hill for eons, until one day at the bottom of that hill, wait a minute, did I miss something? Okay, that piece of wood could have hung around at the bottom of that hill for eons, until one day, zing, lightning struck in such a way as to make arms, fingers, and toes. All right, Pink interrupted. What about eyes? What about ears? What about nostrils? Yellow sat down on a stone to do more thinking. Eyes, he said, could have been made by insects boring in, or by woodpeckers, maybe even by hailstones of exactly the right size, hitting repeatedly on just the right places. Said Pink. He clasped his hands behind him. How come we can see out of these holes the woodpecker made? And hear? Well, because that's what eyes and ears are for, dummy. What else would you do with them? Those cows over there see with their big eyes. This ant sees with his teeny eyes. We see with ours. Okay, said Pink. Let's say you're right. Just for the sake of conversation, do you mean to tell me all these odd things happened not only once, but twice? So that there's two of us? The branch fell off the tree, it hit the rock, it rolled down the hill, lightning struck, the woodpecker pecked, etc., etc. Why not, said Yellow. In 1,000,000 years, I didn't say 5 seconds, The same thing could easily happen twice over. A million years takes a very long time. Branches do break, winds are always blowing, there's always some lightning and some hail and so forth and so on. But you and I are so different, said Pink. How come? That only proves what I'm saying, cried Yellow. It's all accidental. You're probably a different kind of wood. You must have rolled down a different kind of hill, a soft, mushy one, perhaps. Pink was not satisfied with these explanations. He suddenly gave Yellow a challenging look. Explain this, he said. How come we're painted the way we are? Yellow took a few circular turns, pondering this question. The paint, he muttered, the paint. Well, suppose when we rolled down those hills or whatever it was we rolled down, we rolled through some paint someone had spilled. Pink for you, yellow for me. And it came out so neat and symmetrical, Pink said, with perfect edges in just the right places. And there were 3 drops of white paint in a straight line for my buttons and 3 black drops for yours. What about that, my yellow friend? Yellow was silent. He leaned against a tree stump, scratching his wooden head. I can't answer all the questions, he said finally. Some things will have to remain a mystery, maybe forever. But why are we arguing on such a fine day? Just then a man who needed a haircut came shambling along, humming out of tune. He picked up Pink and looked him over. Then he picked up Yellow and looked him over. Nice and dry, he said. He tucked them both under his arm and headed back where he'd come from. Who is this guy? Yellow whispered in Pink's ear. Pink didn't know. Please rise as you're willing and able and sing for the middle hymn from the gray hymnal, number 15, The Lone Wild Bird. Good morning. So, here we are. It is the last of 5 services devoted to some of the activities we engage in outside of the regular services on Sunday and the coffee hour after services. During the preceding 4 Sundays, we learned about Spirit Circle, which happens in the basement of our building in the hour before the service on Sundays. 2 of our regular book group attendees presented an introduction to the Common Readers, named in the late 1980s, and which meets on the second Wednesday of the month at noon. Our first gathering of the month, on the first Friday of each month, is game night, with a potluck followed by board or card games and conversation. Sistering, which our Barb Langle is largely responsible for organizing, meets now via Zoom on the last Friday of the month, and provided the female-identified members of this congregation with a way to get together during COVID when the church was not meeting in person. And they're still meeting and enjoying sharing stories and lots of laughs. And that brings me to Explorers Club, which meets on the third Friday of the month. First, let's do a little history. When I came to this church in 1988, I was coming mostly for my two kids. I wanted them to get some religious education and exposure to what I hoped would be a warm and welcoming church community. We got that in abundance. And then I soon realized that I also would benefit from this church community, from what this church community had to offer, and I started attending Explorers Club, which was then, as now, meeting on a Friday evening. Jerry Ashmore, who co-leads Explorers Club with me now, was the leader back then. We met once a month to discuss a particular topic and wrestle with some important concepts and theories. One of our strongest members at the time was John Bracken. The same John Bracken who donated this organ that Jeremy uses on Sundays, and the same John Bracken whose mother, Laura Bracken, you see the plaque on the wall there by the organ, is honored by one of the plaques in the sanctuary. If you are a Hobart resident, you may also know about the Bracken Parkway and Laura Wood subdivision, named for his mother. John had a particular love for the Dutch philosopher Baruch Spinoza, and would often bring references from his work, primarily the ethics, into our discussions. John said that Spinoza felt that the universe was made of one substance, and that substance was God or nature, with John's emphasis on the word nature to describe this substance. Our discussions were invigorating and challenging, and I found myself getting a copy of the ethics so I could better understand John's thinking. Somewhat later, a newer member joined our discussion group. We were at that time beginning a reading of Houston Smith's The World's Religions, and after the first introductory chapter of the book, we began reading about Hinduism. This newer member had joined Explorers Club pretty much convinced that he was an atheist and that nothing was going to change his mind. Well, we read part of the first chapter and discussed it at length, and then we arranged for a field trip to the Vedanta Center, which at that time was in Hyde Park, Chicago. It was a pretty amazing visit. We had a lovely brief service and were rather impressed with the meeting room we were in. There were portraits of all the revered spiritual leaders or avatars on one of the walls. It was a moving experience, and our new member appeared to be very impressed. When we took up the chapter on Hinduism at the following month's meeting, he seemed to be experiencing a crisis of sorts. His adamantine insistence on his atheism seemed to be crumbling, and it wasn't much later that year that he essentially became a Hindu. Still very much connected to our church, but with strong Hindu leanings, he stayed with the church. He's no longer with our church, but I hope that his time with us and with Explorers Club benefited him. Now, of course, that was not the intention of the Explorers Club. We were not trying to convert anyone to anything. But the beauty about reading about other religions and respectively joining practitioners of those religions in worship services is that you widen your own horizons and deepen your understanding, which contributes to harmony and mutual respect, and at the very least, tolerance in this very fractured world. And I feel that we need this kind of dialogue now more than ever. When I came back to the church after being away for a while due to my husband's serious health issues, I really wanted to see Explorers Club revived, and Jerry and I talked about it. We had one brief try just before COVID, but as with so much else at that time, we had to put it on the back burner. And then COVID became less of a serious threat, and we began to talk about it again, this time getting the support of the RE chair. We had an organizational meeting during which we decided what book to read on world religions. We chose Houston Smith's The World Religions again. But what was even more important than making decisions about what book to use and discussions of possible road trips or films was the time we spent together at the first meeting, getting to know each other and learning about each other's spiritual journeys. That discussion served as a template for discussions to come. We found that reading about and discussing Hinduism and Buddhism and Confucianism and Taoism, that's how far we've gotten in the Houston Smith book, not only gave us insight into these religions and the practices of their adherents, but continued and continues to give us insight into our own spiritual selves. I know that I am consistently astonished by how I can relate to the various religions as we study them, And I find that there are elements of the practices or the creeds or the philosophies that I can appreciate and perhaps even some cases consider admirable. And I know from comments made during our discussions that I am not alone. We added another book to accompany us on our journey through the world's religions, Stephen Prothero's God is Not One, the 8 Rival Religions That Run the World. The Houston Smith book, while excellent and considered a classic, was published in 1958. It has been published several times since then, but with no changes to the chapters on the various religions. The Stephen Prothero book, published in 2011, 50 years later, has a more contemporary take on the religions and brings us up to date on the issues facing some of these religions in the new millennium. So we are using the Prothero book along with the Houston Smith book to give us a more comprehensive picture. We have watched one film, the wonderful Lunana, A Yak in the Classroom, a film set in Bhutan by the Bhutanese filmmaker Pawo Khonchoning Dorji. We watched this film after we finished the chapter on Buddhism, and we will be watching another film next month before we begin the chapter on Islam. That film is a non-narrative documentary titled Baraka, which is a Sufi word, which loosely translated means blessing or essence. It is an exquisite film, and I hope everyone uses the opportunity to come and watch it with us. We are hoping to have some field trips, with the exception of a service at a synagogue on Friday evening when we study Judaism. Those would most likely be on Saturdays, and we will be carpooling. Of the places we have talked about, one that everyone seems pretty excited about is the Baha'i Temple in Wilmette. In addition to the religions profiled in the Smith and Prothero books, we are also interested in other paths, pagan and other earth-centered faiths, Sikhism, atheism, humanism, etc. And we will be looking for ways to respectfully encounter practitioners who would like to share their journeys with us. At last month's meeting, we were very lucky to have Gina, a practitioner of Taoism, come to speak with us about her practice. She very warmly and generously fielded our questions, and we enjoyed our visit with her. It is an experience we would definitely like to pursue with practitioners of other faiths. We meet on the third Friday of each month at 6 o'clock. We encourage the contribution of snacks for when we take a break, nothing fancy. We have one participant who almost always brings a wonderful pot of soup, and it is deeply appreciated. If you are interested, let me or Jerry know, and we will line you up with the books you need. We'd love to have you join us on this journey we are doing together. When we finish with the Houston Smith and Stephen Prothero books and the other faiths we will be studying, we will embark on another exploration together. Perhaps we might even honor the ghost of John Bracken and dabble in Spinoza's ethics. But whatever path we take, we will learn from and with each other and have a certain amount of fun doing it. Thank you.
Hi, now it's time for our offering, our favorite time, right? The loose change for social change recipient for the month of April is Northwest Indiana Pride Fest. Those will be taken in the blue cups, and the baskets are for the upkeep of our church and sanctuary. May I have another couple of people? love it. We should do that every week. That's fun. Now, if you're able and willing, rise and join us in our closing hymn, number 301, Touch the Earth, Reach the Sky. Now for our closing reading, Our Lives Intersect by Tanya Marquez. It is a wonder and mystery that our paths have crossed, that in the immensity of time, in the vastness of space, we coincide here. I am in awe at the ways in which our lives intersect and intertwine, at the beauty we create when we gather. May our coming together make us more compassionate, more just, more caring, and more loving. May our hearts and minds be open to this offering. I am so glad you are here. Let us worship, let us marvel at the miracle of being here right now and the mystery that has brought us together.
Stand on holy ground. Stand on holy ground. Wherever on this earth we stand. Stand on holy ground. Each land is sacred land.